All right, so I'm Alan Tanova. Okay, so first I'm gonna require a little bit of participation here. It's not that difficult. You're just gonna need to raise your hand. All right, so how many of you have raise your hand if you have a smartphone? All right, that's most of you. Yeah, okay. How many of you have a social media account in Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat or something like that?
MySpace.
That counts. Yeah. All right. How many of you have an account on more than one of these sites? All right. Again, that's a lot of people. All right. So from that, I guess you can see that my topic is on technology and social media, and my major claim to this is that current trends in technology and social media use have a negative impact on societal health. So I have two secondary claims. My first is that social media connects users but reduces human interaction, and my second is that social media use is more likely to negatively affect mental health. All right, so back to my first claim, social media connects users but reduces human interaction. For sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they provide an automatic audience with minimal effort and interaction. So Bailey Parnell from Ryerson University states that at least 90% of college-age students are on social media, and they spend at least 2 hours a day there. So that gives a little bit less time for human-on-human interaction. And during this time spent on social media, you're also viewing the, I guess, what you can call a highlight reel. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the best part of the person that they present themselves online. So you get to see the best part of them, but you don't really, so you feel like you know them, but in reality you don't know all the complexities about them. And so it's not as I guess, productive than one-on-one human interaction. So this also creates the illusion of companionship without the demands of a real friendship. And so Sherry Turkle, who has a PhD in sociology and personal psychology, states that the moment that people are alone, even for a few seconds, they become anxious. They panic, they fidget, and they reach for a device. So what this means is, like, when you want that feeling of friendship, you can just pull out your phone, look at it, see what everybody is doing, so you're able to, fulfill that need for human interaction without going and speaking to somebody else. So, and now on to my second point, social media use is more likely to negatively affect mental health. So addiction to social media can occur similarly to substance dependencies, and when using a substance, it creates a release of dopamine, and dopamine is basically a chemical that allows you to feel pleasure or pain, and when you're using social media, getting those likes, seeing that people are responding to you, it also kind of fulfills that same role. You see the same rush of dopamine as you would if it were a drug. And so because of this, there's also some withdrawal symptoms similar to, that could be comparable to drug use. Maybe not as intense, but it's still there. So, and some of these symptoms is that high use in social media can cause anxiety and depression, and this is something that's called FOMO, fear of missing out. So basically, when you're experiencing FOMO, you just, you're not necessarily, you have to check your phone. You have to pull out your phone, check at it, see if you're in the loop, to see what's new, what's going on. And if you get separated from that device that allows you to access these social media sites, you'll start to get anxious. You'll start to want to find it. You want to see what's going on, so you can't be separated without it. So, back to my major claim. My major claim was current trends in technology and social media use have a negative impact on societal health that reduces human interaction and that can negatively affect mental health. Thank you.
Well, the mixture of the current trends in technology and social media is a little bit awkward for the phrasing of the proposition, so we'd prefer a singular term on that, but you do identify the proposition at the beginning of the speech. You do give us a preview of what the supporting points are going to be. It mostly does seem like this is a chain of arguments that's building together to lead to this particular conclusion. That's fine. They're only the 2 points, so we're not going to get too lost in this, even if you miss things, but you do signpost as you get to those individual points, so that part is clear. There's a lot of explanation about what the underlying assumptions are without a lot of demonstration that those assumptions are valid, and I think you need a little bit more information on that. For example, the trade-off on virtual friendship versus real friendship. You suggest, for instance, that the amount of time that people spend online means they have less time to do other kinds of things. Maybe it simply means that people are multitasking because they're checking their social media while they're driving their damn car instead of being at the library talking to their classmates, that sort of thing. The example that I might have used is their attention device. By the way, the attention device is perfectly fine. The example I might have used would be the fact that nowadays I come into class and nobody is speaking to each other. It used to be that you'd walk into class and people were talking to each other before class and comparing notes about the last class and talking about the other classes that they're taking. Now you get 20 people and they're all on their phones and nobody's talking to each other. And it's a different experience. That's the kind of thing I think that helps illustrate the point you're talking about, and that's a hypothetical or kind of a shared personal example that I think would make your point a little bit more effective. I got the idea about what you're talking about, and there's not quite as much visualization of it as I think you would want to have. The other thing that's missing is some other data to support this, that people are in fact diminishing this. The 2 pieces of data that you cite is the one statistic about the number of students who have these things and the amount of time they spend on it each day. The assumption is that there's a trade-off, and that's one of the things that's missing, that there is a trade-off, that we spend less time studying or whatever the heck it is that we should be doing that would be better for our mental health. And by the way, I'm never sure that additional time spent studying is going to reduce people's anxiety. That seems to be the assumption on your second point, and that's, I think, perhaps a little bit problematic. The quote from the PhD I thought was pretty effective, but it really is only talking about this one concept about being alone. As long as people have their phones, why is this a problem? And 90% of us have our phones, so I'll never have to be alone. So why would that create anxiety? That sort of thing. I think that's it's a little bit self-sustaining on that particular point. The second part, you explained this idea of FOMO, and I think it's an interesting idea. The proof on it is, I think, a little thin. All right? Okay, well, I can tell everybody's packing up to go, so I guess I should do the same thing, except I'm not going anywhere. I'm listening.